So it is 10, so we're going to get started. Everyone, thank you for joining today's Open Research Office session. Today's topic is going to be an overview of CLIC, and our presenter is Tracy Groves. She's a training program coordinator. So go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Marshall and Alexis. Thank you so much for having me. I really am excited about giving you guys a little overview of CLIC. I know that most likely many of you have had some experience with CLIC, maybe some not so positive. I definitely am open to answering any and all questions. I can't promise that I will have the answer. I will absolutely try to have the answer, but if I don't, I do have a little pad of paper here. I will write down the question and I promise I will get back to you with an answer if I don't have it right off the top of my head. But I am very, very happy and willing to take questions as we go. I know that there's a big group of you. If you wanted to write down your question in chat, I know Marshall said that she would be monitoring the chat, so you can do it that way. Or you could unmute yourself and interrupt me, but I know that's a little bit difficult when there's a big group. So it's entirely up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. And with that, I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right. I hope everybody can see my screen now. First of all, let me just introduce myself. As I said, as Marshall had introduced me, I am Tracy Groves. I'm the training programs coordinator for the Research Information Systems. I have been now in this position at UB for about a year. So I'm still getting my training wheels off, but I've sort of jumped into the deep end and I am going full force. So essentially what my role is to help with the training softwares, CLIC, Encore, etc. Primarily CLIC and a little bit of Encore. So what I do have group training sessions, and I do try to offer them relatively regularly. I am going to be doing a whole bunch more here after, as we're getting toward the holiday season. It's going to be a little bit more sparse, but certainly after the new year, I'm going to be trying to do group courses a little more regularly, but I also offer one-on-one coaching. So if you have a question, a concern, I know some of you maybe have already had experience reaching out to me. I do try to respond as quickly as I can, and I do try to help as much as I can. So please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have a question, concern, anything concerning CLIC, here's my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out. So a little background about CLIC to get started. First of all, the CLIC portal is a comprehensive software for managing research and streamlining workflow and compliance for research. Basically, CLIC is the software that UB has chosen to implement to assist principal investigators, students, compliance, and research administration staff with administering sponsored programs. UB is leading the implementation of the CLIC portal, working in collaboration with the vendor partner Huron. If you hear that term Huron, that's the company that actually maintains the software. Basically, that's the company we purchased the software rights from, and the leadership team. So CLIC automates the submission, review, and approval processes while managing all major administrative aspects of the research lifecycle. So starting with proposal development, compliance checks, negotiation, award setup and management, to finally the eventual project closeout. CLIC manages all of that. CLIC uses a smart form system. Smart forms are a series of forms where you input certain information about a study, and based on your responses, it will determine what the next forms or the next questions are to be completed. The basic smart forms in CLIC, there are 9 main pages, essentially. You start with the basic information and then funding sources, study staff, the study scope, external sites, drugs, devices, consent forms, recruit materials, city training, and supporting documents. And I'm going to kind of go through each of them a little bit with you so you can get a little better feel. But just some basics about these smart forms. There's a couple of little things that I think are helpful to know. First of all, whenever you see a question with a little red asterisk, where the little one arrow is, you should note that that is a required field. So in other words, it's not going to let you move forward. It won't let you finalize the form until that particular question has been answered. Also, whenever you see a little blue circle with a question mark, that's a little help field. If you click on it, a little pop-up box will come up with a little bit more information about the question. It's not super thorough and super helpful, but it does at least give you a little bit more information. So if you're just kind of unsure of what they're asking, you can click that little circle if it's there, and it will give you a little more information. And again, you can certainly reach out to me if you do have a question about what you should be putting somewhere or what the question is asking. I'm happy to try to help you with that. Where the little 3 arrow is at the top of the page, you're going to see the navigation bar. This is where you can easily save or exit the form that you're in, or jump to another page. And you'll see down on the bottom, it has the exact same bar. So the jump to button is to the far right, and basically you can jump from page to page. You don't have to use the continuing arrow. And then finally, this little arrow number 5 is where you can hide or show errors. So basically, if you're not wanting to bother at the end of things to go back and fix any errors that you might have, you can turn that on, and it will actually do a check as you're answering the questions and let you know if there's a problem while you're doing it in live time. Most of the pages, many of the pages or tables that are in Click can be filtered. Very oftentimes you'll see this little bar here that says filter by. And whenever you do, there's always this little drop down caret with some options of things that you can filter that particular field, table, whatever, by. So whenever you see that little filter by, you can use that box to make things a little easier for you if you have multiple options and you want to just find something quickly. That's one way to do it. You also can search for multiple criteria, such as the name and the date that it was created in the advanced field. So if you click on the little advanced button here to the right, it will give you a way to even make that find a little bit more filtered down. A little handy tip that I like to give people that not a lot of people know is that whenever you are trying to find something in Click, if you use the % symbol, it works as kind of a wild card. So basically, let's say you want to filter something and the name has rats. You're filtering for the study name, and that it has rats in it, but you can't really remember the first word, or you can't remember the entire title. You can use that little % symbol and then rats, and it will give you a list of all of the findings that have rats in it. Or for example, in this example here on the page, if you want to find it by ID number and that it ends in 71, but you can't really remember the rest of the numbers, you could do %71, and it will show you all of your study IDs that have 71 in it. I find that to be a little bit helpful. So I thought I'd pass that on to you guys. So the Click portal assists with 6 aspects of research management. There are 6 modules that make up Click. Okay, there's the agreements module, the conflict of interest module, grants, IACUC, IRB, and safety. And again, if you have had any experience in Click, and I'm sure many of you have, you've probably found that there are a couple of the modules that you might live in primarily. Very oftentimes, depending on the type of research that you do, you may live in the IRB module most often, or IACUC. You may occasionally go into grants, agreements, COI, or safety, but you probably live in 1 or 2 modules primarily. So the first module, the agreements module, provides electronic system for management of research-related contracts and agreements. There are 2 offices at UB that provide oversight for this agreement process. There is SBS, which assists researchers to prepare and submit proposals for sponsored funding and provides management of awarded funds to ensure compliance with applicable regulations and policies. There's also the Office of Science, Technology Transfer, and Economic Outreach, or STORE, which negotiates and executes all material transfer agreements, MTAs, and non-disclosure agreements in keeping with the university's research guidelines and its obligation to federal research sponsors. I see there's a question in chat.
Connor just made a comment that there were actually 3, the SPS, the TTO, and the CRO.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. So the benefits of the agreements module, basically it provides a customized submission form for various agreement types. It eliminates the risk of storing information in individual email accounts, and it interfaces with other modules. So basically it does speak to the other modules, or it's supposed to provide simple tracking of relationships to studies of grant awards. Oh, and by the way, this is what the agreement smart form looks like, just to, make that clear. The COI module, gosh, I just was going through puberty there for a second. The COI module, this is one that probably many of you have gotten familiar with in the last week or two, right? So the conflict of interest module provides electronic system management for research-related conflict of interest disclosures. It ensures the prevention of bias, helps avoid a circumstance in which a researcher's personal interest or relationships might compromise the integrity of research in the university. The compliance team and conflict of interest officer carefully reviews these disclosures. They effectively manage conflicts and report to appropriate federal agencies as needed. Each investigator must disclose a disclosure statement that includes information pertaining to their significant financial interests, or SFI is the acronym, and any sponsored travel that may be related to the research. Whenever a grant application is being submitted for research, prior to submitting human subject protocols for review, annually and immediately upon discovering a new SFI. So the benefits of the COI module ensure that there's consistent processes. It eliminates redundant data input by connecting COI input to study protocols and awards, and it fosters a culture of transparency. The COI module provides this system to prevent the bias and help avoid a circumstance in which a researcher's personal interest or relationships might compromise the integrity of research in their university. As I said, if you don't have a Click account, I've given you the link here where you can access it. I also will give you step-by-step instructions here shortly. But if you can't find your annual COI is due by November 1st at UB. So basically around, I think it was around September 15th, but I think it was like closer to the 20th. A blitz of emails went out. Probably you all received one saying, hey, your COI, your annual COI is going to be due November 1st. And then as the time moves on and it gets closer and closer to November 1st, which we are getting closer, we only have a couple weeks left, you're going to be getting more frequent emails if you don't complete it. So you want to make sure that you get that in. If you can't find your annual COI to complete it, just reach out to me, send me an email, or I've given you the help email link as well. The grants module provides electronic system and management for grant award applications, budgets, milestones, contract terms, subrecipients, and compliance status. It ensures consistent processes and reminders to researchers and staff for pending work items. It integrates grant processes with key compliance issues, such as IRB and COI. The Office of Sponsored Project Services, SBS, helps to develop grant proposals, reviews, and submits sponsored funding proposals, and assists in managing grant awards. So One thing I just want to point out, down on the bottom of each PowerPoint slide, I have given you basically the life cycle of each of these modules, or what you're going to see when you go into the module based on, where you are in the process. So just to point out, just to show you, with the grant module, when you're first starting developing the grant proposal, you'll see draft. And then once it gets submitted for review, you'll see internal review, specialist review, sponsor review, and then finally awarded once it is awarded. The benefit of the grant module is that it ensures submissions are accurate and complete. It standardizes the budget preparation and review. It integrates with existing accounting and HR systems. IACUC provides the electronic system management for animal studies in scientific and educational activities. It provides access to species, procedures, substance, training information, and inspections. It assists in the creation of reports, and the IACUC reviews and approves all animal research to maintain nationally established standards to ensure that the university's research methods are ethical and compliant. Benefit of the IACUC module is that it ensures compliance with federal regulations and regulatory reporting requirements. It provides a library of standard substances and procedures, and it supports annual and triennial reviews. IRB provides a streamlined way for researchers to create and submit protocols for studies involving human subjects. It initiates new studies, modifications, continuing reviews, and reportable new information. The Institutional Review Board, or IRB, approves, modifies, or rejects proposed research based on its perceived risks and benefits to prospective subjects. The benefit of this is that it ensures compliance standards, reduces approval turnaround times, which is obviously important to many of you. Now, one thing I want to point out about IRB submission, first of all, the start of a study, you're beginning with the training, the feasibility study design. But then one thing I want to point out, and I'm sure many of you already know this, but just in case you don't, there is another software called the Central Study Registration, the CSR. And this is really where anybody who wants to submit something for IRB is going to start. You're going to enter the information basically into the CSR, and then it speaks to IRB and it transfers the information into IRB. So, this is one place where some people do get backed up or confused a little bit. Maybe they start with Click and then they're wondering why things aren't getting approved or why there's a delay. And just to point out, this is one of the big reasons why many things are delayed, because it does have to start with the Central Study Registration. So just so you're aware of that. And the person that you want to speak to if you have questions about CSR is Kim Brunton. I did see that Kim had spoken a month or two ago at this forum. So hopefully many of you already got this information. But just in case you haven't, I just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out because it is important. The safety module provides a way for researchers to identify hazardous material that will be a part of an experimental protocol, such as biosafety hazards, radiation, chemicals, and stem cells. The Environmental Health and Safety, EHS, department anticipates, recognizes, evaluates, and controls all safety hazards at the university while striving to protect human health and the environment. The benefit is that, this module helps to ensure adherence to safety protocols through federal, state, and local regulations. It allows to track with IRB and IACUC protocols, and it contains full review, committee, and meeting management functionality. So that was the 6 portals, or 6 modules rather, of the Click portal. But I also wanted to point out that, many of you will most likely have to take city training. If you do have to take city training, just so you know, that is separate from Click, but it does speak to Click. They are they are communicating. So when you do complete your city training, it should, and I emphasize should, it should automatically just add into your Click portal if you already have a Click account. So just so you are aware, to do the city trainings, you go to cityprogram.org and use your UBIT name and password to log in and complete the trainings. But once you have completed the training, it will speak to Click and upload automatically into Click. Let me pause for a second. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right, well, feel free to ask if you haven't, but I'll just keep going, assuming that there aren't any questions. So getting a Click account. I know many of you probably already have one, but just in case there are some of you out there that do not, accounts are created for faculty and staff of UB. Students can also get a Click account. And you log into the system using your UBIT name and password.
Tracy, there was one question.
Okay, sure.
From Colleen. How does this interface with Smart IRB?
How does this interface with Smart IRB? I'm not sure that it does, to be honest. But I will check on that for you. That's a good question. I've not had that question before. But I will check on that, and I promise I will get back to you and let you know. Any other questions? No? Okay. Okay, so to get your Click account, you're going to navigate to the website that I have here, which is buffalo.edu /research services, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But you go to that webpage and you click the register for Click box, which is on the right side of the page and looks like this little box with the green on the side. You're going to click on where it says register for an account here, and you're going to complete the request account page that will pop up that looks like this. When you are done filling out your information, you just click register. And one little helpful tip I can give you is it is important when you're registering for an account to use your buffalo.edu web email address. Now, you can request for your email address to be changed if you would like, your preferred email to be another email that you use more frequently. Perhaps you don't use your buffalo.edu email very often and you're afraid of missing something. You can certainly request a change in that email and I can update it for you. I can change the preferred email address. However, to actually register, you do have to use your buffalo.edu email address because Click is tied to UB. And that is the way that they ensure that you have an active appointment with UB if you have an active email address. So you must use your email address. And then if you do have you do want to change, you do want to switch it to, whatever ECMC or whatever your other email address may be, just shoot me an email or you can put a request in with the help team and we can do that for you. That's a pretty easy request. You will be emailed notification once the account has been activated. And then once you get an account, you will log in. Now you will start with this page. This is what the login page will look like if you haven't already used it before, assuming that many of you have. But if you haven't, this is what the login page looks like. You log in using your UBIT name and password to access the Click portal. So basically the same username and password you use for other UB systems. If you don't know your UBIT name or password, you can, or you need to reset it. You can contact Central IT at support@research.buffalo.edu or call that number for help. So during pre-submission, the research team completes the smart form pages. And as I said, these are the forms essentially that make up Click. Based on your responses, it will determine what next pages need to be completed, or what additional questions might need to be answered. But anyone from the research team can complete these smart forms. It does not have to just be the PI. However, an important thing to know is that only a PI may actually submit a study for review. So this is where I do get a lot of questions. This is something that a lot of folks, might get a little caught up on or email me about. So just to make you aware, if you don't see, after you've completed the smart forms, this little button here that looks like down here on the bottom, that looks like under my current actions that just says submit. This will not show up to anyone that is not a PI. Okay. And that's where some people get confused. In fact, I just had an email this morning. Someone had sent me a request saying, they're trying to submit a study and there's no submit button and they don't know why. Well, when I went into Click, I noticed that they had not been given PI rights. So that's why they didn't have the submit button. And that is, important to note. So if you are not seeing that submit button, you should reach out and let me know, or, put in a help request. It's most likely that you don't have the proper rights in Click to actually submit a study, and we can absolutely fix that quickly. Another thing that's important, though, to note is when you are creating a study, you want to make sure that you keep in mind the roles that you want each person to have on your study team. If you have, if you have somebody on your team who you wish to submit the study on your behalf, or you wish for them to have those rights, you want to make them a PI proxy, so that they have those rights. And that's important because a lot of people don't know that. So you can make them as a PI, you can make someone else a PI proxy, which gives them the same rights as a PI. So just so you are aware of that.
Tracy, we have two questions in the chat.
Sure, absolutely.
One, Connor asked, when does something go to Click Grants versus UB research proposal whiteboard versus central study registration? And another question that's asking, I assume it was before this slide. So before we get to this point, should we have already done the CSR stuff? So just as a general statement, as Alexis and I work with the CSR, if you are from any of the 5 health sciences schools and you're submitting a study, you should have done CSR first. There's a question in CSR that asks, did you already put your study into Click? So if you end up doing CSR after you've done Click, you want to hit yes and type in your study number. So that is my 2 cents. Tracy, you can take over the rest.
You answered it perfectly, and that was exactly the way I would have answered it as well. So just to piggyback on that, absolutely, if you are in the health sciences, you absolutely want to start with CSR first. That's to answer that question. That's where you're going to start.
Only for human subjects, though.
Only for human subjects. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
If you're doing a yeast study, don't start with CSR.
Thank you. Yes. As far as the grants, module, that would be after that. However, if you are not using CSR, if you don't have human study in the health sciences, then the grant module would be where you would most likely start, and you would work with one of the folks, lovely folks in the grants team, to help you kind of walk through that and get that funding approved before you would actually start the study. So hopefully that answered your question. I know that question had a couple parts, but I think I got it all. If I didn't, I apologize, and please ask me again. Okay, so again, As a PI, you will want to make sure that you assign anyone the PI proxy rights if you know that you want them to have the ability to submit on your behalf. But Click is very, very protective of a PI's rights, and so anyone that does not have PI rights will not have that ability. They can certainly go in, they can edit, they can adjust things, but it's up to the PI to finalize it and actually submit. So when you first log in, into the Click portal, you will be taken to my inbox, to your inbox. Your inbox is an area that contains all submissions that currently require you to take action. So basically anything that you're currently working on should show up in your inbox. My inbox is divided by 2 tabbed pages. You've got the SBO tasks and the compliance tasks. Compliance tasks contain a list of all submissions that currently require you to take action. And SBO tasks contain a list of agreements, COI disclosures that currently require action. So that's what you will see when you first log in. And you will have access to all 6 of the modules at the top of the page. So when you first log in, you can easily go to a tab directly by clicking on the name at the top of the page. In the inbox, you will see kind of a blue hyperlinked name for any submissions that you have that require action. If you click on that hyperlink, if you click on that little blue name, it will take you directly to that task or that study so that you can actually go in and take care of the action that might be required. You will also be able to see the state that the submission is in. So if you look at the little arrow where it says 2, you'll see that, in this particular example, this study clarification is requested for this particular study. So, and the ones below it all are in pre-submission. So it just gives you kind of an overview of what's going on with things that you're working on, essentially. To open the study, again, if you just click on the blue hyperlinked name, it will take you directly to it. From the study workspace, this is where anyone can find details regarding a study, the state of the process, the action that needs to be taken. And then you'll also find some tabs regarding the history of the study, or whatever it is that's in there, the attached documents, important contacts, submission information, related projects. So basically, it's going to give you everything you need right there in in the inbox. And this is what it's going to look like when you click on the particular study name. It will take you to the workspace. This is what it's going to look like. You're going to see at the top of the page some details, basically who the PI is, who the IRB coordinator is, if it's an IRB study, and then you will see the state of the where the study is in the process. So in this particular example, this study has already been created and has been submitted for review. So it's in pre-review right now. To the left, you will see what actions you can take based on the state of the study. So another thing that's important to know is that Click will not allow, it's very linear in that it will not allow you to move on to step C until you have completed step A and B. In other words, you're not going to find actions that you are not able to do. So that's another little important tip, because if you are going into my current actions and you want to edit a study, let's just say, but all you see is view study. Well, the reason why you see view study and not edit study is because you've already submitted it, and it won't allow you to go back and edit something that you have already submitted for review until after it has been sent back to pre-submission, or if clarifications are requested or modifications are required. At that point, then that button will change from view study to edit study. But that, just to give you some information. And as I said, again, that submit button is another key. That would be where the submit button would be found. Once you have completed everything in pre-submission, the submit button will show up for an API and you can submit the study there, but you won't have that until it is all completed. And then on the bottom, you will find some tabs with information about the study and the review process. I think the very first tab, the default tab where it kind of goes to initially, the history tab is very helpful. It can give you a general overview of the history of what has happened with that study or that submission. And you can go into, again, these are little blue hyperlinked spots here. You can go into that directly and just kind of read the notes or take a look at what's going on or what happened in that particular situation. Okay, so what's next? Well, you will go to buffalo.edu/research to get into Click. If you haven't already, you can locate the Quick Links tab and just click on the Click portal where I've highlighted here. Or you can request a Click account if you don't have one already. You're going to enter your UBIT name and password and then click in Login. So let me, that's pretty much what I've got for you today. Let me just open it up here for some more questions if you have any. Okay. Well, again, I will, I have my contact information here and I will just reiterate that if you do have any questions, concerns, anything regarding Click, you can certainly reach out to me directly. And this is my email address, tracygr@buffalo.edu. If you need assistance with your UBIT name or password, I've given you the information for that as well. I do
Tracy,
see some,
one question did pop up.
okay.
Can you review which tab to pick when reviewing a study or adding new information?
Which tab to pick when reviewing a study or adding new information? Okay, so so if you are okay, let's start here. If you are looking to add more information or review a study, I'm guessing from your question, you're saying the study has already been approved. It has already been submitted because this question could have three possible answers. So I'll start with what I assume.
Can you hear me? I'll repeat. So
Yeah.
when we do a renewal,
Yes.
and I personally do this, I always seem to pick the wrong form to complete versus a renewal versus adding new information or changing a study team member. So if I'm PR Prox, I seem to always, when we go to that main page, I'm picking the wrong tab because then I do it and then I get, you filled out the wrong form. You need to delete this and do this one. That's
right.
what I'm looking for.
Okay. So when you are, if you're a PI proxy and you are looking to make a change to the study, you're most likely going to need to do an amendment. And that is most likely where the problem has come in. An amendment, when you click on the study, you will see to the left here where this button says create a new study. But when you click on the study, it will take you to the workspace, and you will see some buttons here. View study would be probably one of the options. So you click on view study, and then one of the options below should be create an amendment. That would be most likely what you're looking to do. But if you're just looking to, if it's time for your annual, I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. But that would be first of all, that's my first answer is if you're looking to add someone or do something, change something to a study that has already been approved, which it sounds like it does, then you would go into the study and you would create an amendment. That would be what you would, that would probably be the right next step for that. However, if you are in a review, an annual review, it will probably offer you the opportunity to edit. So,
Is that so that's what I'm choosing to renew is edit study, because then you get to that thing, it says other parts of the study. I mean, that's where I always seem to screw up. I get to the wrong form.
I see. Yeah. So Alexis or Marcella, I think maybe you could jump in, but I think if I'm understanding the question properly, I believe they would need to do an amendment. Am I correct with that in saying that?
So it's funny. Zach Chackin was our speaker 2 weeks ago, and he went over a little bit of this. So that's for if you're talking about your annual renewal, that's a continuing review.
Okay.
Whenever you do a continuing review, unless you're closing out the study entirely, you do a continuing review and modification.
Okay.
If you're closing it out entirely, that's the only time that you just do it as a continuing review.
Okay. That answers my question, because I always seem to pick the wrong tab.
I've done when I was a project coordinator, I did the same thing. So
Yeah.
We've gotten a couple more questions.
Okay.
One was, what are the forms needed to close out a study? And then,
but
and then just another one was, can you please go over the CSR info again?
okay, sure. So as far as closing out a study, basically, when you, oops, darn it, when you are in the study workspace, one of the options, one of the options that you will see in the workspace down here below is to close out. So you know what, actually let me go to, hang on, since that question is asked and I actually have a better slide. Excuse me just one second. Oh. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. So sorry. Here we go. When you are looking to where is it? When you're looking to close out a study. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So when you're looking to close out a study, when you click on the IRB tab, you can go into create a modification, continuing review, and that is where you would close out the study as well. If there are no modifications, this page will pop up and it will give you the opportunity to actually close out the study, to make additional changes. So basically that's where you would do it. So to close out a study, you would go into the modifications page, continuing review modifications tab to answer that question. And then one of the questions that will be asked is, are you looking to make modifications? And if you click no, then the study closure page that looks just like this on the screen. Can everyone see my screen? I hope I am still sharing. Okay. The page will pop up, study closure information, and you can fill out that information there. Okay. So hopefully that answers that question. As far as the other question, can I go over the CR? Yes. You know what? Actually, I have it on this PowerPoint too, so I'll just go to that. Here we go. Okay. So the CSR is the place where you're going to enter if your study is in the health science schools, and it's deemed a clinical trial. Then you are going to provide in the CSR the basic information of your study, essentially. And then CRO will never actually submit the study, but it will, much of the information will actually automatically auto-generate into Click. You will have to go into Click and probably fill out a few more things that didn't go through. Just look it over, make sure that it is correct, and then you will submit it. I hope that was your question. I don't know for sure, but I think I answered it. I hope.
The specific person that asked about CSR, I can also send you the link to Kim's ORO session where she obviously goes into it a little bit deeper than we are here. So
Right.
I'll send you the link after this meeting.
Okay.
Regarding the closing out a study, Colleen asked, is there another form that needs to be put with the closure?
I do not believe so.
Okay, because I have the approval of the closure, but for our department is asking for a form. And I don't see it in a library. I don't know what they're talking about, so I thought I'd ask.
I have not heard of any other additional form. What I can say is if you don't see it in the library, if it's not, they're available in the library, then I would probably ask them for more clarification of what they're looking for, because honestly, there's nothing in Click beyond that I'm aware of, and I've not heard of any additional forms that need to be completed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
They could perhaps be asking for the letter, the official closure letter.
Yeah, Alexa, I gave it to Caitlin to document for plan, and she's at.
The sound cut out.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay, well, I am going to look into the Smart IRB. I apologize that I don't know much about that. Again, I have only been here about a year, so I'm still learning, and I do apologize, but I promise I will find out and I will get back to you on that. I will definitely look into that a little more. But if anyone has any other questions before we close out, I am happy to answer them. Otherwise, I really thank you for this opportunity. I hope you got at least a little bit of something out of it. And, don't hesitate to reach out. First and foremost, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or concerns.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not seeing any more questions come through then. So Tracy, thank you. I have gotten a couple requests. Would you mind sending me the slides and then I can include them?
Absolutely.
In the email after?
Absolutely. No problem at all. Happy to do that.
Thank you. All right. Thank you everyone for attending.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye everyone.